On the final day of his sophomore year of high school, James Clear was hit in the face with a baseball bat. The impact was catastrophic: shattered eye sockets, a broken nose, and multiple skull fractures. He was placed into a medically induced coma. His dreams of being a professional athlete seemed to be vanished in a fraction of a second. But this is where Mindshift begins. Clear didn't rebuild his life with grand gestures. He started with atomic habits, the single, irreducible unit of a larger system. He focused on going to bed early, keeping his room tidy, and improving his study habits. These tiny improvements were not just about productivity, they were about fulfilling his potential. Most of us believe that massive success requires massive action. We put pressure on ourselves to make earth shattering improvements. But real transformation happens through the aggregation of the marginal gains. The philosophy of searching for a tiny 1% margin of improvement in everything you do. Consider the math of the 1% rule. If you get 1% better each day for a year, you will end up 37 times better by the end. Conversely, if you get 1% worse, you decline near to zero. Your outcomes are simply a lagging measures of your habits. Your net worth is lagging measures of your financial habits. Your weight is a lagging measures of your eating habits. Your knowledge is a lagging measures of your learning habits. James Clear reveals a truth that challenges everything we have been told about success. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Goals are good for setting direction, but systems are best for making progress. Winners and losers often have the same goals. What differentiates them is the system they follow. The invisible plateau. An ice cube sitting on a table in a cold room. The temperature slowly rises. Progress is rarely linear. Imagine an ice cube in a room at 25 degrees. You heat it to 26, 27, 31. Nothing happens. The ice remains solid. Then you hit 32 degree and the ice begins to melt. A 1 degree shift, seemingly no different from the others, has unlocked a huge change. This is what Clear calls the plateau of latent potential. It is the long, invisible stretch where your work is not being wasted, it is being stored. Most people give up in the valley of disappointment, the gap between what we expect to happen and what actually occurs. Success is like the stone cutter hammering at his rock. He may hit it 100 times without a crack showing, but at the 101st blow, it splits in two. It wasn't the last blow that did it, it was everything that came before. To make a permanent mind shift, you must change the right thing. Most people focus on outcomes, what they want to get. But the deepest layer of change is identity, what you believe about yourself. Imagine two people resisting a cigarette when offered a smoke. The first says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit." They still identify as a smoker trying to be something else. The second person says, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker." This is a signal of a shifted identity. Clear writes, "The goal is not to read a book. The goal is to become a reader. The goal is not to run a marathon, but to become a runner." Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. You don't need a unanimous vote to win an election. You just need a majority. Your goal is simply to win the majority of the time. The first law, make it obvious. How do we build this system? Through the four laws of behavior change. The first law is to make it obvious. Habits begin with awareness. The Japanese railway system uses a method called pointing and calling. Conductors point at every signal and state it aloud. This raises their awareness from a non conscious habit to a conscious level, reducing errors by up to 85%. You can do this with the habits scorecard. List your daily habits and label them as positive, negative, or neutral. To start a new habit, you need clarity, not motivation. Use implementation intentions like "I will meditate for 1 minute," or use habit stacking like, for example, after I pour my morning cup of coffee, I will meditate for 1 minute. Most importantly, design your environment. Environment is the invisible hand that shapes human behavior. If you want to drink more water, place full bottles in common locations around the house. If you want to practice guitar, put the stand in the middle of the living room. Be the architect of your world, not merely the consumer of it. The second law, make it attractive. The second law is to make it attractive. Habits are a dopamine driven feedback loop. Dopamine is released not only when you experience pleasure, but also when you anticipate it. It is the craving that leads to the response. Use temptation bundling. Pair an action you need to do with an action you want to do. Only listen to your favorite podcast while exercising, or only watch your favorite shows while folding laundry. We are social creatures. We naturally imitate the habits of three groups: the close, the many, and the powerful. The most effective way to build a habit is to join a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. If you are surrounded by fit people, working out fits like the standard. The third law, make it easy. The third law is to make it easy. Human behavior follows the law of least efforts. We naturally gravitate towards the option that requires the least work. To build a habit, use the 2 minute rule. Whenever you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do. Don't try to read 50 books, just read one page. Don't run a marathon, just put on your running shoes. A habit must be established before it can be improved. Standardize before you optimize. You must also prime your environment. If you want to cook a healthy breakfast, set the skillet and oats on the counter the night before. To break a bad habit, increase friction. Unplug the TV after each use or leave your phone in another room until lunch. Victor Hugo beat his procrastination by having his assistant lock away all his clothes so he couldn't leave his study. He was forced to write. And the final, fourth law, make it satisfying. The final law is to make it satisfying. The cardinal rule of behavior change is what is immediately rewarded is repeated, what is immediately punished is avoided. Our brains evolved in an immediate return environment. We value the present more than the future. To overcome this, use habit tracking. Jerry Seinfeld's secret was a wall calendar where he marked a big red X every day he wrote a joke. His only rule, don't break the chain. But what if you fail? Claire's rule is simple, never miss twice. Missing once is an accident, missing twice is the start of a new habit. Reclaiming a habit quickly is what differentiates winners from losers. How do we go from being merely good to being truly great? By following the goal, the lock rules. Humans experience peak motivation when working on tasks that are right on the edge of their current abilities. Not too easy, not too hard, just right. But there is a hidden danger to habits. Once they become automatic, we stop paying attention to errors. The greatest threat to success is not failure, but boredom. Professionals find a way to show up despite the boredom. They fall in love with the system rather than the outcome. True mastery is habits plus deliberate practice. You narrow your focus to a tiny element, repeat it until automatic. Then use the habit as the foundation for the next challenge. Can one coin make a person rich? No. But if you add another and another and another, eventually you must admit that the pile has changed your life. Success is not a goal to reach, it is a system to improve. It is a commitment to tiny, sustainable, unrelenting improvements. This is the MindShift Summaries message. Small habits don't just add up, they compound. If this summary shifted your perspective, start your 1% journey today. Subscribe to MindShift Summaries. Walk slowly but never backward.